So, what we need to understand then is that Sky will provide us with in-depth analysis. They'll give us the ideas, the bottom line, the integral part of why it is important for us to understand that Labor are failing miserably. And as a result of that, they need to be turfed out at the next election. And of course, the most important person to go to is One Nation's leader, Pauline Hanson, because Pauline has all the goods. Pauline's been at it now for, well, almost 30 years, and she understands the intricacies of politics. In fact, from Pauline, we can learn what it is like to be insightful, to be realistic, and to be on target when it comes to analysing politics at its deepest possible level. So we have a clip here which justifies, verifies that sort of notion that Pauline is the one who can provide us with the details required in order for us to make a more reasonable assessment as to what's happening at the political level. So here she is speaking with Chris Kenny about something which she knows a lot about, apparently.
Let's go to Pauline Hanson now, the One Nation leader, joining me live from the scenic rim in Queensland. Thanks for joining us, Pauline. Do you think it's reasonable to call Peter Dutton divisive and dangerous?
Oh, good topic. So so I love the way they're going to kick off with the topic of the day, which is, as I reported the other day, is that Chalmers came out and said that Dutton is divisive and that he is dividing the country. And, you know, I think there's no better person to hear from to help us to better understand that this is the case than none other than Pauline.
Not at all. That's the pot calling the kettle black. I couldn't believe it when I actually heard that. He needs to look in his own backyard. As I hear from a lot of people, in my own opinion, Anthony Albanese is the worst Prime Minister we have ever had. Chris, you summed it up. A lot of things. Failed in the voice, that was divisive, and it's pitted one Australian against another Australian. All right. Okay. So, so somehow we're going to forget about Scott Morrison, who had a number of his own portfolios, not known to anybody else but him and the Governor-General. So, and we also, I guess, we need to forget about robo-debt, because that really wasn't relevant at all. The fact that people did die, we should forget about that. So to say that Albo is the worst Prime Minister 3.5 years through his term is pretty unreasonable and not all that helpful, I don't think, or 2.5 years. So Pauline has all the goods, though, because Pauline's opinion, with the fact that she is a minority leader, that her party is not doing all that well in the polls, losing some of her supporters, I think. But nevertheless, Pauline is the one that we should be listening to in relation to all these issues. You have the high immigration, which has caused the housing crisis that we have. That's a lie. The immigration affects the housing market by something like just 4% or something. It's not significant. So, you know, lie number one. You know, the electricity prices heading down the path of this climate change BS and the amount of money that's gone into that, destroying our farming sector, you know, left, right and centre. Electricity prices, according to a recent survey, have gone down significantly since the Labor government have offered some assistance on electricity prices. With the exports overseas, with the farming sector, with the transmission lines, all this is happening. So under the Labor Party, and it just continues on and on and on. And our educational system, the wokeness, gender diversity, just everything that's happening. She's going to talk about in a moment the education system,
this is laughable.
It's disgusting. No, Peter Dutton, I back him all the way, and I hope he is the next Prime Minister of this nation.
Yeah, just while you're talking about education there, I wonder if you caught Gina Reinhardt's comments I highlighted earlier in the week, where she says our schools are now teaching children to hate Australia rather than be proud of it. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yes, I do. Yes, we're not teaching our kids about the history of Australia. And a lot of these kids, even my grandson comes home and he said, we've actually got to touch the ground and acknowledge that the Aboriginals are the traditional owners of this land. And they're coming home and they're saying and I'm hearing from parents saying, the kids coming home and saying, why did we actually murder the Aboriginal people? Why did we take the land from them? And this hatred is going on in our educational system of what we're at.
Okay, so let's just analyse some of that now. Now, the fact that we're teaching our kids the history as it happened and we're not burying it like we have in the past, and that the reality is that our colonial history is something that we should not be proud of, that Indigenous people in this country have been massacred. Now, what do we do? Do we hide from that? Because we're talking about it, does it make us less patriotic, whatever that means? Or should we just confront our history? And I think my take on that actually is that if we're going to confront our past, it's like us individually. If we do something that harms another person and we take responsibility for our actions as us as individuals, then clearly us understanding that, us taking responsibility, us acknowledging that to the people that we've harmed or the person that we've harmed is a healing process. It is about making sure that we're acknowledging at least what we have done, and that can cause others to say to us, well, okay, I now accept that makes me feel better, let's move on, let's move forward. But when we're not doing that, when we're the Pauline Hansons of this world and the Chris Kellys of this world, and we're deciding that we should never acknowledge what has happened, that children should not be taught about the important lessons that can be learned from our history, that we should hide all the atrocities that we've done from our children and from the community in general, I think is an abhorrent idea. That the reality is that we need to confront this stuff. We need to find ways to deal with it. And the voice was a way by which we could do that. That we failed, as I've said before, is a blot on us as a country and on us as a community. And that needs to be overturned at some particular point. But the fact is that Sky News get people like Pauline Hanson on all the time to talk about this shit stuff, which in effect it's so, look, I guess the only word I can think of, it's just so ignorant that someone like Pauline Hanson plays to a certain group of people who...
My children went to the local state public school and were dictated to that multiculturalism is a great thing. I don't believe it is, as I feel that the culture of the original British/Irish majority has been demonised constantly for the last 3 decades. How does democracy fit into this atmosphere of beat up the white guy?
Saying that they're no longer, the minorities aren't being heard and being squashed by white people, and people are pushing back. And when we push back, as in a la The Voice, the right wing come out and talk about how disadvantaged they are because they no longer have the power and the influence and the control that they would like to have. People like Pauline Hanson would like to have more power and control as a political leader, so that she can implement some of her bizarre and crazy ideas, right-wing conspiratorial type ideas at that. So we need to push back. And I've said this many times on my channel. The purpose of my channel is to push back against people like Pauline Hanson and all those people on Sky After Dark, because a lot of what they say is just garbage. It's absolute garbage. And we need to be able to call it out for what it is. Because look, we can accept the terrible history, and it is true, we as individuals were not a party to that. But by not acknowledging it, we're kind of saying that it was okay. It's like if we noticed someone was being violent towards somebody else, a male was being violent towards a woman, for example, and we said or did nothing, we become part of the problem. We are firstly refusing to defend another person who's less powerful than another. That is wrong in itself. We should find ways to defend those people who have less power and less influence than others, particularly against people like Pauline Hanson and her ilk and Sky News. We need to be able to stand up for others so that they then can have a voice to put their point of view forward. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to agree with them, and there'll be many ideas that come from varying groups of people that I would disagree with. But at least they need to have the voice as opposed to being silenced. And what Pauline Hanson would like to do, and others like her, is to prevent us from having the discussions about the things that we as a society should take responsibility for. Because in some ways, those particular attitudes, the attitudes that were held 150 years ago, are still being held in our community and being propagated by people like Pauline Hanson. And we need to make a stand against her and others. And we need to provide the space so that people, immigrants, Indigenous people, have the voice they need so that their issues can be heard and hopefully resolved. Now, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Are we doing enough to provide a voice for those people that are less powerful, less influential? Should we be doing more? What is it, do you think, that we actually should be doing? Let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.